Hello again, and welcome to the 11th episode of the podcast, Simple Enlightenment. I'm your host, Dean Graves. We come to you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. In previous episodes, we have highlighted specific tasks for consciousness to undertake in the experiential densities in order to evolve. Third density was described as the most intense density of all of the densities for a variety of reasons, and the lessons of the density are extremely important because how consciousness makes its choices from the lessons determines its course through the remainder of its tenure in the experiential densities. In third density, consciousness is tasked with three significant duties, which are 1. Becoming aware, 2. Becoming awareness, and/or 3. Choosing whether it will either work to align more closely with the Creator or separate from it. Those choosing to separate from the Creator will not become aware or become awareness. The characteristics of consciousness in third density are that it begins the density with the time-space perception of the self as an independent mind-body-spirit, and projects itself into space-time simultaneously as multiple analog mind-body spirits. Every analog projection also perceives of itself as a separate identity, cocooned within a physical body and independent from all others sharing the experience. By virtue of these conditions, the time-space mind-body-spirit is provided the opportunity to begin the density experience with a clean slate, but able to cumulatively preserve the fruit of its experiential interpretations in order to uniquely create its ego, or pattern of consciousness. All consciousness, beginning its tenure in third density, begins the experience on an equal footing, with the same degree of coding activation, the same quantity of intelligent energy, and the same awareness tools in potentiation. As soon as a third density experience begins, participating consciousness incarnates into space-time bodies and interacts with other incarnate space-time bodies by sharing experiences. Experiences are synonymous with thoughts, and the space-time mind-body-spirit processes thoughts with third density capabilities. Some analog projections incarnate as males that are predisposed to be the subject in the lifetime, and some will incarnate as females that are predisposed to be the object. But from the beginning of the third density experience, and because each mind-body-spirit incarnates into multiple analog projections simultaneously, the time-space mind-body-spirit is both male and female at the same time. Each interaction with other third density incarnate mind-body spirits, the co-experiencing second density consciousness, and the third density created environment afford them the opportunity to learn about themselves through analogy. The objective is to become awareness, and then learn about love from that vantage point. But when consciousness begins from scratch, in chaos, ignorance, and unconscious, it must also discover what love feels like. Before consciousness discovers what love feels like, it determines that some experiences feel better than others, and through analogy, it learns to create behavior that feels better. Behavior results from thoughts, and the selection of new thoughts are, for the most part, based on its interpretation of previous experiences. The nature of its behavior is a product of its degree of awareness, and consequently, it behaves according to its level of consciousness, or how far along it is inched up the dimensional scale. Analogy dictates that we learn by trial and error, and when awareness is low and consciousness retains the limited perspective characteristic of the beginning conditions of the density, consciousness usually chooses to repeatedly experience what it doesn't like in search of what it does like. There is no limit or end to how many experiences producing results that don't feel good that consciousness may have before it begins to become aware, the first definitive phase of its evolutionary progression. In order to limit bias from the creating higher self and preserve free will in the third density experience, it is extremely important that the process begins without any prior programming of what love should feel like. Mind, body, spirits serve as the subject and or the object to each other in every experience, and inherent in every subject-object interaction is an exchange of energy, intelligent energy. Getting more intelligent energy from an exchange feels better than losing intelligent energy, and, as explained in episode 10 of the podcast, winning an energy battle creates a temporary feeling that feels good. If you would like to review a more specific explanation of this process, then we encourage you to review the information in the earlier episode explaining the confusion between stasis and stability that creates the philosophy and behavior of the concept of empire. The concept of empire is the foundation for the polarity of the experiential densities. The polarity is the conflict between those mind-body spirits that have not become aware, rely upon winning the energy battle to experience immediate gratification, which is often mistaken as love, and consequently polarize negatively, and those who do become awareness, experience the enduring feelings of love, and polarize positively. Those polarizing negatively are identified as service to self, and those polarizing positively are identified as service to others. These are only characteristics of different vantage points of consciousness, but still inherently all part of the oneness of the Creator. We have heretofore described the evolution through the experiential densities as beginning in a state of dispersion and ending in a relative state of unity and or harmony. Because a mind-body-spirit cumulatively preserves its learning beginning in third density, its evolution through the experiential densities is a one-long process that begins with a perspective of being separate and culminates in the unity of sixth density, but it does this in phases identified as third, fourth, and fifth density, with each density being a different phase. The choice between polarizing negatively, the service to self path, and polarizing positively, the service to others path, is the single most important task of third density, because it will determine the nature of consciousness's experiences in both fourth and fifth density. Making the choice in third density is required for graduation from third density because not only does it select the nature of a mind-body-spirit's experiences in the higher densities, it determines where and in what environment those experiences will be presented. Earth, for the third density experience just completed, was a second chance planet. The population was consolidated from 16 different third density experiences that had already participated in, but not graduated from, at least one previous third density experience. Of the 16, 3 were major contributors and 13 were minor contributors. Because the mind-body spirits had preserved their patterns of consciousness, or egos, formed during previous third density experiences, they brought with them as the foundation for their experiences on Earth significant distortion baggage, also known as emotional baggage. As an example of the source of the emotional baggage, one of the major population contributors began their third density experience on the planet Zenoa, Zenoa, which we now call Venus, approximately 850,000 years ago, and has experienced 4 previous third density experiences. The first third density experience on Zenoa successfully completed the entire plus or minus 75,000 year cycle and graduated some portion but not all of the population. The non-graduating population began a second third density experience on Zenoa, but midway through the second segment of the new experience, the conflict between the polarizing segments of the population resulted in the destruction of the atmosphere on the planet, requiring the entire third density to be terminated because the planet could no longer support a third density experience. Until this event, Zenoa had successfully hosted successive third density experiences for over 2 billion years. The third density population of Zenoa, which we will identify hereafter as the Zenoa-Earth population, was relocated to the planet Maldak to start another plus or minus 75,000 year third density experience from the beginning. Maldak was a planet in orbit around the Sun between Mars and Jupiter. Again, midway through the middle segment of the master cycle, conflicts between the polarizing factions of the population resulted in the complete destruction of the planet and the end of the third density experience. The remnants of Maldak are seen as the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. After the destruction of Maldak, the population was in need of significant healing because the mind-body spirits were in a knot of fear and unable to function. Part of the healing process for many mind-body spirits included incarnating on Earth as a Bigfoot creature, where they remained a third density consciousness but experienced essentially a second density incarnation. For some, the healing process continues, but not necessarily as a Bigfoot incarnation, and it will still be necessary for the individual mind-body spirits to eventually graduate from the density by meeting the same criterion as all other mind-body spirits. The Zenoa-Earth population started the fourth attempt to complete a third density experience and graduate on Mars. Unfortunately, history was repeated, and during the middle segment of the master cycle, the conflict between the polarizing service to self and service to other factions of the population again resulted in the destruction of the atmosphere of the planet, and the experience had to be terminated because the planet again could no longer support the experience. From Mars, the Zenoa-Earth population was transferred to Earth. The 8-body was adapted to accommodate a third density body type, and other failed third density experience populations were consolidated, and the Earth experience began a little over 78,000 years ago. For the Zenoa-Earth population, the Earth experience was the fifth attempt to graduate, and only the second third density experience completed to term without some degree of total destruction. But the Earth experience was not without its own extreme difficulties. At the beginning of the third density experience, the face of the planet looked very different than it does today, because there used to be a continental landmass between North America and Europe that was totally destroyed as a result of the bellicosity between rival service to self and service to others factions. The continent was the most densely populated area of the planet, and was named Atlantis, and as a result of the final conflict with nuclear and other crystal weapons, sunk beneath the waves in 8441 BC, leaving only a few survivors from either side to rejuvenate the third density experience. We don't know if the other 15 contributing populations brought as much emotional baggage with them, but the Zenoa-Earth population's history alone was a significant contributor to the difficulties of the Earth-based third density experience. As a mind-body-spirit polarizes more significantly towards the service-to-self path, it becomes necessary for it to become increasingly adept at extracting intelligent energy from other mind-body spirits. It is not possible for them to actually steal the energy directly because the energy donors must agree to surrender their energy. In order to convince them to give up their energy, it is necessary to use deceit to do so, because invariably, if they were aware of what they were doing, they probably wouldn't willingly participate in the deceit. In earlier episodes, we explained that third-density mind-body spirits simultaneously incarnate into multiple analog projections into space-time, with their flow of intelligent energy from the higher self usually being allocated equally to the analog projections. As a third-density mind-body spirit begins to choose the negative path, they reduce the number of analog projections until eventually they cease incarnating into more than one analog projection at a time. By consolidating their energy into only one analog projection, they can more effectively use the additional strength gained from a superior energy resource to dominate and subjugate other mind-body spirits that are weaker and more dispersed into multiple incarnations. The philosophical concept of empire, that I can be enhanced by diminishing others, becomes the service to self rationale for their behavior. Domination and subjugation are the primary tools that negatively polarized mind-body spirits use to extract energy from others that are still undecided as to their own polarization, unaware, and still functioning in chaos. In order to dominate and subjugate, it is necessary to make the targeted others into victims, and by some sort of deception that they need to be dependent upon the stronger or more knowing subjector. This is often accomplished by weaponizing fear, by suppressing awareness, limiting light or information, and enslaving those mind-body spirits that they consider weaker than themselves, either physically and/or psychologically. Those polarizing service to self are themselves fear-based, but have sufficient familiarity with the characteristics of fear to be able to use it to enslave others with weaker energy resources. A common effect of consolidating energy into a single third-density incarnation is a comparatively greater intelligence. Intelligent energy is what energizes the chakras and allows consciousness to activate the time-space bodies, which are the same as the time-space chakras. Beginning in third density, consciousness has sufficient awareness to assume the responsibility of furthering its journey through the evolution. Consequently, it isn't limited to energizing only the third time-space body. In fact, in order for those mind-body spirits polarizing positively to graduate from the third density experience, they must liberate enough energy to open the fourth chakra. When a third density mind-body spirit polarizing negatively gains sufficient proficiency, they will intentionally skip opening the fourth chakra entirely because they are fearful of surrendering ego and therefore consider love to be folly, but instead will use their energy absconding proficiency to energize the fifth time-space chakra, bypassing the fourth. Intelligent energy is the conceptual creator. You can refer to episode 2 for a review of this, within which creation is created by the projection of the conceptual distortion of free will. Intelligent infinity is the canvas on which creation is painted, and it is always present, even though consciousness in the lower densities is usually unaware of it. When a mind-body spirit opens the fourth time-space chakra, it is able to become aware of the presence of intelligent infinity, and at this level of consciousness, intelligent infinity function as energy. When a mind-body spirit opens the fourth time-space chakra and allows intelligent energy to flow through the space-time chakras more easily by healing attachments to the distortions, the awareness of intelligent infinity begins to be integrated as a booster energy into the functioning of its awareness. This process is often described as intelligent infinity entering the top of the chakra system and proceeding downward through the top chakras until it meets the upward flow of the intelligent energy in the fourth chakra. Intelligent energy is omnipresent and doesn't flow because it is absolute stillness and stability. It becomes available for incorporation into consciousness's experience of creation as it is able to become aware of it. For those polarizing negatively, the connection does appear to be a flow into the tube of its chakra energy flow, because its ego serves to block out awareness and only channels intelligent infinity as it chooses to accept it. They choose to make it a weapon to enhance their identity and further hone their skills of dominating and subjugating other consciousness. Those polarizing positively are actively in the process of dissolving the ego and enhancing awareness, and by dissolving the rigidness of their connection to intelligent infinity, their identity is integrated with all that there is. Their image of self is becoming vulnerable as a separate identity because they are feeling increasingly one with the Creator. Consciousness graduating from third density along the negative path doesn't energize the fourth chakra, but they work to abscond enough energy to energize the fifth chakra, bypassing the fourth. By garnering enough energy to open the fifth chakra, they too become aware of intelligent infinity and are able to begin to incorporate it into their experience. For consciousness along the service to others path, the addition of intelligent infinity provides them with the ability to surrender their distortions more quickly and completely so that they may evolve more efficaciously, but it has other effects along the service to self path. The service to self path uses the additional resources as a weapon to effect a greater use of force in order to dominate and subjugate more completely. Negatively polarized mind-body spirits can advance to both fourth and fifth density because they are excellent deceivers and ruthlessly dominate and subjugate other consciousness in order to extract more energy. They must prey upon other consciousness, especially in the lower dimensions of third density, in order to adequately maintain a sufficient flow of intelligent energy to remain in evolution. If they fail to do so, their identity will essentially disappear and dissolve back into the higher self, even though they have chosen the path of separation because the same higher self retains their role as a higher self. Every aspect of creation is the Creator learning of itself by experiencing itself, and there is no judgment or condemnation for the choices made by fractalized consciousness, but there is often head-shaking disbelief. Consciousness following the service to others path is surrendering its perception of separation, integrating and merging into unity with the Creator, so it is incrementally becoming one with the Creator again. Consciousness choosing service to self intensifies its perception of separation, increases its attachment to distortions, and preserves and enhances the ego identity initially created in third density. Service to self, mind, body, spirits are in perpetual competition with every other aspect of consciousness because they are rivals for intelligent energy to sustain their very existence, even with other aspects of negatively polarized consciousness. Intelligent energy makes them stronger and more forceful, but the stronger they become, the more isolated they become. The consciousness polarizing negatively is concentrated within the Orion star system, but it has outposts throughout the universe. Once a mind-body spirit graduates from third density along the service to self path, it is probable that they will remain on that path for billions of years, themselves being dominated and subjugated by stronger service to self mind-body spirits until they are able to win some energy battles and elevate their position in the community. The social structure of service to self-consciousness is much like a pyramid marketing scheme. There are lots of minions in third and fourth density that actually do the work of harvesting energy, but few fifth density mind-body spirits oppressing the minions and perpetuating their enslavement. Sixth density is the density of unity, but it is possible for a service to self, mind, body, spirit to master the confiscation of energy process so proficiently that it reaches the lower dimensions of sixth density strength, but only for an instant. It isn't possible to be in unity and separate at the same time, so mind-body spirits follow the negative path are destined to hit a wall where they cannot go any farther. At this point, if not before, in order to return to the Creator, they must surrender all of the strength and identity they have built up over the billions of years by being in constant competition for survival. Return to the density where they dropped out of school, and follow the service to others path through the densities. There is no other way to advance out of the experiential densities than to follow the service to others path. Even though Earth has entered a fourth density experience, large portions of the population currently incarnate are struggling to graduate from third density, and service to self factions are hard at work to harvest as much energy as possible from those remaining mind-body spirits before the source dries up. The third density experiences on Earth, Zenoa, Maldek, and Mars have endured significant efforts from service to self factions to hinder their progress so the energy sapping could be sustained. It has been a very fruitful enterprise for the service to self pirates that have convoluted the population's experiences, but also provided the Creator with significant opportunities to experience itself in unforeseen ways. Probably more than any other single condition, the degree of interference and the resulting degree of success has caused the Earth experience to be one of the most intense and difficult third density experiences. Even though the Zenoa-Earth population and other consciousness contributors have been under assault for a long time, it has always had a significant number of cheerleaders, and their preparation and transition to fourth density have been the universe's game to watch. Service to self does not honor the law of confusion, so they have no compunctions about violating the other consciousness's free will, but service to others does. Not only do the Creator beings honor the free will of lower consciousness polarizing positively, they equally honor the free will of consciousness polarizing negatively. The interference that the Earth's population currently experiences is comparatively subtle, because fifth density service to self is now primarily relying upon the suppression mechanisms and culturally distorted ideologies established and programmed into the population's history. But in Earth's fairly recent history, service to self has been much more interactive and in direct contact with the population in order to instill fears and distract the population from successfully evolving. Once service to self has established a reliable source of energy, they want to preserve and sustain this source by making it self-perpetuating from generation to generation, by instilling fear-based beliefs that will be handed down to future generations. Essentially, large portions of the Earth population are on autopilot, self-perpetuating their spiritual enslavement by means of self-imposed ignorance, reliance upon superstitions for the basis of understandings, and the perpetuation of resulting false beliefs and outright lies, heretofore instigated and promoted by fourth and fifth density. When service to self reaches fifth density strength, in some ways it's very wise, and it uses that wisdom in conjunction with its vantage point of being outside of time and its other abilities to play upon distortions and exacerbate fear and perceptions of victimhood. They need mind-body spirits to implement the energy harvest from within the third density experience and actually be the agents of their deceit. By establishing a class of unconscious third density agents, they are also creating a steady supply of souls polarizing negatively to replenish the generations of new fourth density minions to continue to feed the fifth density upper echelon. In the Zenoa-Earth experience, it has been relatively easy to recruit service to self agents by capitalizing upon beliefs of superiority based upon skin color or wealth, religion, debt, war, education, etc. In recent Earth's history, service to self has been more physically intrusive and interactive with the population. For example, the lines of Nazca, Easter Island Heads, and Stonehenge were all created by fourth-density service-to-self beings and have no purpose other than to stimulate fear within the populations of the time. 99% or more of the UFOs sighted in the skies above the Earth or close encounters of the third kind are fourth-density service-to-self intrusions simply attempting to stimulate fear. Because service to self actually seeks to lower its consciousness while gaining strength by pirating intelligent energy from the third density population, it retains a significantly greater attachment to the space-time illusion than does positively polarized consciousness. For example, fourth density service to self has significant technological capabilities and must primarily rely upon physical vehicles for transportation, but fourth density service to others simply connects to universal consciousness by surrendering the perspective of self. Fifth density service to self is able to create portals to traverse the universe for themselves and for their fourth density minions to use, but service to others just connect more completely to universal consciousness. Fifth density may physically appear in whatever form they desire, and are not limited to a single body type, but service to self must be in relative proximity of its target, while service to others doesn't. Creation is a thought experiment, and experienced in thought, but thought in the foundational and experiential densities is created by sixth density consciousness. Fifth density is not able to create thought, but they can see and manipulate timelines which are comprised of a string of thoughts, and that allows them to bend a thought from one timeline to another. A set of timelines being experienced by a third density mind-body-spirit offers a full range of possibilities, which includes everything from the most positive to the most negative. Negatively polarized fourth density only marginally have the capabilities of manipulating thought directly as they advance to upper dimensions. All that is necessary to disrupt a third density mind-body-spirit stream of thought is to temporarily bend a more negative fear-based thought stream into the current timeline, and it is likely that the third density mind-body-spirit will accept it as if it were its own. Very, very, very few people are going to have a fifth density service to self, mind-body-spirit, bending negative thoughts into their path, but fourth density service to self is much more active in doing so because they are the minions responsible for harvesting energy. Most of us, however, don't need any help with that because the current condition of our pattern of consciousness attracts the next thought, and if we retain a significant quantity of emotional baggage in need of healing, that alone will be more than a sufficient magnet to attract a plethora of negative thoughts that surrender energy. However, the remedy is the same for one of our own self-attracted negative thoughts as it would be for one that was impudently fed into our timeline. Become aware of the thought that doesn't seem right and dismiss it. We mentioned earlier that the service to self is centralized in the Orion star system, but has outposts throughout the universe. The service to self portion of creation is structured with a very distinct pecking order based upon who is controlling the more energy. The top echelon is the most proficient at absconding with energy, and at manipulating and oppressing service to self subordinates in order to stave off challenges to their energy sources or their dominion. As it is, on third density Earth, those who control the wealth and power don't want things to change, and so they promote stasis in keeping things the same. In addition to using brute force and intimidation, the most beneficial environment for service to self to prosper is one of chaos. It is important for them to keep the minions off balance and in a constant state of chaos, because if they were ever able to find a point of stability, they might be able to institute a coup and depose the existing rulers from their thrones. This is true not only for the non-incarnate activities of the service to self world, but it is also true of how they attempt to program and disrupt a single third density experience, such as Earth. If conditions become too reliable in the fourth density service to self ranks, or in their third density targets, instability is artificially instigated to stimulate chaos and ensure that the minions are keeping off balance. When a mind-body-spirit graduates from third density along the service to self path, they automatically are thrust into a fourth density planet population for further incarnations as a fourth density mind-body-spirit. They immediately become a minion to a fifth density ruling mind-body-spirit and must compete for a position in the fourth density pecking order. They immediately compete against other fourth density service to self mind-body spirits that have been playing the game for millions, if not billions, of years, so they are immediately disadvantaged. One individual that we know graduated service to self from the Earth experience was a strong and ruthless bad actor named Genghis Khan, who is now an inglorious shipping clerk in fourth density. The population completing Earth's third density experience is producing a mixed graduation, with some polarizing and graduating along the service to self path, and others are graduating along the service to others path. However, most of the population will probably remain in third density and be transferred to another third density experience so they can try again, some for the sixth time, to learn the lessons of the density. For those graduating service to self, it is probable that they will become integrated into an existing fourth density service to self experience occupying Mars. Venus, formerly Zenoa, is home to a solitary fifth density mind-body-spirit regional manager for the Orion group. While it may seem appropriate to consider those polarizing negatively as a bad thing, it is important to remember that all is one, and all consciousness is just another part of you. The service to self path is just another path to unity with the Creator, albeit an exceedingly long and troubled one. The answer to how to respond to the demands, efforts of intimidation, or attempted domination by those polarizing service to self is to simply reject their overtures and continue along your chosen positive path. The rejection may require some significant application of force on your part, and that is okay, but only if it is in response to their force and you are able to feel love for them in spite of their attempts to injure you. If their overtures trigger an emotion other than love within you, it is a message to you and about you of something that needs to be healed within you. Missing the opportunity to become aware of what it is within you that needs healing, and then committing yourself to the task of actually healing that condition, makes the experience less valuable for both of you. While consciousness remains in third density and the lower dimensions of fourth density, every experience provides the experiencing mind, body, spirit with an opportunity to learn of the self more completely. Learning comes from awareness, and awareness fuels the escalation of consciousness and its evolution. Thank you for listening to this episode of Simple Enlightenment. We hope you are enjoying the information being presented and are using it to become more aware, explore yourself more completely, and allow yourself to become more of who you really are. If this information is helpful to you, please share it with 3 other people that you think will benefit from it. If you share it with 3 and they share it with 3, then Before long, we may see some significant changes in how the world's population sees itself and behaves. As you may know by now, Simple Enlightenment is entirely listener-funded, which means we rely upon you to be able to offer these presentations. It does require money to maintain the infrastructure to offer these podcasts, and for those of us doing the work to continue to financially support ourselves. Please go to our website at podcastenlightenment.org and make a donation. Whether it is large or small, everything helps. While there, you can find transcripts of every episode, recordings of guided meditations to help you get started on self-exploration, suggested readings, and more, all free, of course. Thank you for wanting to make the world a better place, and until next time, we leave you in the love and the light of the One Infinite Creator. Theme music and audio production provided by Dr. Ken Wendt.